Welcome to another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the indie publishing industry. Today, my guest is Brian Parker, a bad boy of post-apocalyptic fiction. So, Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your latest book.
Thanks, Katie. My name is Brian Parker, like you said. I'm an active duty Army guy. I've been in the Army for 21 years. I'm a little bit different than a lot of writers out there. There are certainly a lot of writers who've been in the military, but very few that are actually active duty still, that are writing and producing while they're in the service. In fact, I only know of one other one, and that's J.L. Bourne, who's in the Navy. My latest book that I just came out with about, 3 weeks ago was called The Immorality Clause, and it's a sci-fi noir. It's been described as like Blade Runner meets Ex Machina. And then I've got 13 other books besides that. Post-apocalyptic is my primary genre. I've also got zombie apocalypse books, military fiction, paranormal fiction, and even a kid's book. So I'm kind of all over the map.
Now you have a kid's book. That's interesting. What kind of a kid's book is it?
So after I wrote my first book, Nash, we went to dinner to celebrate it, and my kids were, I think they were 4 and 5 at the time, and they wanted me to write a book for them. So started spitballing it with kids, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we came up with a storyline. And the book is called Zombie in the Basement because at the time I was living in D.C. and my wife, who's also active duty military, was stationed down in Charlottesville. So I was staying with a family in D.C. and they called me the Zombie in the Basement because I would wake up in the morning before the kids were ever there or awake, and I would go to work and then come back, around 9 o'clock at night. So they maybe saw me for 15, 20 minutes. They always said I was the zombie in the basement, So that's kind of where the title of the book came in. And then with my kids, we wrote the book, and I knew I wanted a picture book because that's where the kids wanted to go. And I really tried rhyming the story, and I did not have a knack for rhyming. I'm not Silverstein at all. So kind of trashed that and kind of just went along. And as the story developed, I ended up with something I really did not want. Well, not that I didn't want, but that I didn't expect. The zombie in the story is part of a family, and he just wants to kind of get along with everybody. He wants to be a normal kid, but he's not quite normal. But he does get by through life with help from his friends and family. And as I developed the story, I realized that the zombie is kind of possibly synonymous for, a child with special needs. But totally not what I was planning on doing, by the way. And so I've actually read the book at a few elementary schools, and the kids just really love it. Whenever someone actually picks up the book and reads through it, and they can figure out, what the message behind it is, they really like it.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
It's a fun little unexpected extra that you got out of that. And I love that it's based in your family. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, even in the back of the book, there's 4 little pictures, my kids' concept of what they thought it should be. So my 4-year-old had a picture in there, my 5-year-old had a picture. The family I was living with who came up with the title, their 9-year-old has a picture in there, and then the artist has his original concept drawing. Whenever I was putting the book together, I was soliciting artwork, and I really just enjoyed what he put together. So I put his concept drawing, in there, which did not end up in the final book, except for the little picture in the back.
That is really cool. Now, what age range would you say that book would be for?
I always say, it's good for 2 to 8-year-olds, but the very first time I went to an elementary school and read it, it was for 12-year-olds. It was the kids were in 5th grade, getting ready to go into 6th grade, and the school counselor asked me to bring it in and read it to them. They really ate up the message, and the school counselors were like, hey, that's a message they need to see going into junior high, was the fact that it's okay to be different. Everybody can do something different and be just fine in life,
Well, you compared it to special needs kids, but it's also, zombies by and large are just popular with every age range, so that sounds like a great topic to incorporate into a good lesson, which is what you've done. That's
really how, again, like I said, it really ended up being that way. My kids just love zombies.
Who doesn't?
The non-scary kind, obviously.
Of course.
They don't really dig the scary ones. But it worked out. It was turned into something totally unexpected, and I just love the final product.
David said, who doesn't like zombies? So I have to raise my hand. Zombies give me the heebie-jeebies.
Are you serious? Oh,
they are the things of my nightmares. They freak me out so badly. I can't watch The Walking Dead. I can't watch any zombie movies. I will have nightmares.
I am legitimately surprised by this. This is funny.
How so?
You write about all sorts of mythical creatures like vampires and stuff.
Vampires aren't scary. Werewolves aren't scary. Shifters aren't scary. The Fae aren't scary. Zombies are scary.
Why?
Without a doubt, they freak me the hell out.
Why?
They're creepy, and lately the shift in zombies has gone from the mindless, just lumbering, body that's falling apart to these super fast, shrieking things that as soon as they get a hold of you, they just tear you to shreds.
Yeah, that's why you don't let them get you. It's very simple, really.
In the zombie apocalypse, I will be the first to say it. I am gonna be the first to go. It's just gonna happen. I won't outrun them. I'm not even gonna try. That's it. I'm dead. And I have no survival skills. I mean, I'm sure you being in the military, you've got plenty of survival skills. You'd probably outlast.
I have more of coping mechanisms. We drink a lot.
There you go. now let me transition that into, since we're talking about zombies and we're talking about military. One of your book series combines the two, doesn't it?
Yeah, so actually the very first book that I wrote, Nash, was I was working at the Pentagon at the time, and so I was like, hey, how would the Pentagon react to a zombie, outbreak in the Pentagon? It spitballed from there, and actually my first novel, was all about, the city of Washington, D.C., coming under siege. Obviously, being in the military, I don't buy into the thought process that a lot of people do. The military would be overwhelmed, and we don't know how to adapt and all that stuff, because we're a pretty adaptable organization as a whole. You have individuals, that can't adapt, but the organization, we're very adaptable. So in my mind, we would figure things out pretty quickly. The zombies in Nash is not a total world apocalyptic type situation. It's very regionally confined because the military is able to confine it to an area. And it's funny that you were talking about, how the old school shamblers, versus the fast zombies, because I have both in the book, because I couldn't decide which I liked better. So the ones that were initially turned by the virus, or the fast, the ones kind of like from 28 days later, those sort.
Right.
And then anyone that the secondary infections are the traditional like shamblers, from George Romero type stuff. So really combined both of them.
I think it's a lot more fun to add additional mutations when you're playing with zombies. Because if you just have shamblers, it feels a little plain by today's standards. So I think it's really interesting to incorporate the fast runners or the crazy big monster ones or whatever.
What causes one to be slow versus one to be fast?
It's just the rate of decay and infection in the bodies. The virus in that book is a genetically engineered virus by a terrorist organization. So it's a combination of 4 or 5 different things that were stolen over time and combined, including splicing viruses and bacteria, which can be done, but it's extremely, extremely hard. But for this to work, the way I wanted it to be able to transmit and stuff, I had to have it. That's what it was a splicing of the two.
I really love that because it sounds plausible. It sounds based in reality, which makes it extremely creepy.
A lot of people have talked about like how realistic that book, and it ended up becoming a series, how realistic the series is. One, because I write everything from a military perspective, so how it would actually be, or how the military would handle things. But I don't, try to do crazy stuff. People can't jump, 25 feet and do all sorts of crazy stuff and bend bullets around walls, all that stuff. Simple physics, are what we have to work with.
I love that you can base it with your experience. I think it's a very unique point of view because, like you said, in film, a lot of military is depicted as easily broken down. With your knowledge base, there would be a lot more resistance thrust upon the threat.
Yeah, and that's kind of the basis of it is they figured out pretty quickly and they quarantine an area. It gets out of their initial quarantine, but they're able to, bring it in and bring in all the troops we have to bear, really kind of quarantine and get it just in one small regional area, not really small, I guess, but yeah, so, it's, again, I think it's plausible, so.
Yeah, it sounds like a much more intelligent book to read. Rather than just like, oh, Outbreak, oh, everybody's dead, we're all screwed, guys.
Yeah, I hate books where, well, I say, this is going to be tongue-in-cheek, I hate books where nobody survives. But I actually did write a book called Origins of the Outbreak, which was a collection of short stories. And I wrote it as kind of like a satire on the zombie genre, so like I have the cliches. You have the scientist that accidentally creates a zombie virus, and you have the stripper, and you have the drunken housewife, and all these things. And so, not very many people in that book survive. But I wrote it that way, kind of like a satire. As far as the plausibility in Nash, I mean, I hate when everybody dies in a book because
it's depressing.
You want to have someone who comes out on top, and who's the winner.
Well,
obviously in these type of books, someone dies.
Do you play board games a lot? Have you ever heard of that game called Pandemic?
I played on the cell phone.
Okay, that game, when you lose, basically, you can all lose, and it's awful. It's a terrible feeling when you actually lose the game, and you guys, you come to the point where you realize, okay, well, there's nothing we can do. We are absolutely screwed. It's such a falling off of a cliff feeling where you're just like, oh, great. Well, now we just feel terrible. So I
guess I haven't played that. I played a different game.
What? I think you're thinking of Plague Inc.
Maybe.
Where you create a virus to kill the world?
Yeah, where you create a virus to kill the world.
That is a stressful game to play, but I love it. I gotta say, I love that. It's just, again, it's one of those things where it's creepy. It's super creepy, and it almost feels like, okay, this could happen.
Now, let me ask a question here, because like I said, zombies freak me out, so I'm not well versed in zombie. But how long does a zombie live, and how do they sustain themselves?
That depends on the type of zombie.
It's all made up, so you could have it be whatever you want. I think it's funny, sometimes, especially initially, I've really kind of moved away from zombies more as I write more. At first, people were calling me a zombie expert, and I was like, "What are you talking about, man? It's a fake made up creature." In my book, they're kind of perpetual. They don't really die off. I really like that about the 28 Days Later zombies, how they would die off, starvation and everything. And I didn't really address that in my books, what would happen over time. In my I keep talking about other books, but in my book, Enduring Armageddon, there are zombie-like creatures. They're not actually zombies, but they're just humans that have been so messed up by radiation and everything. They go crazy. They can take hits. They can get their arms chopped off and stuff like that. But eventually they bleed out and die. So they still follow basic human anatomy. But they just don't feel pain. Kind of like someone who was on PCP. If you were looking at dudes in the 80s or bath salts now.
Oh, so creepy.
So, yeah, right.
So freaking creepy.
Let me ask this because on this whole zombie thing, the reason that they freak me out is because of the whole. It seems like the most legitimate monster that could come out. If there was any monster that was going to be real, it would be a zombie, and it would be from some kind of medical outbreak of some kind. So
exactly.
is that the way you guys see it too? Is that what the thrill factor is? Is that it's the probably most plausible monster out there?
Well, I think a lot of people in reality are more prepared for a zombie outbreak than most disaster situations. Or at least, they think about it so much.
Well, I loved a few years ago, it was, 2010, 2008, whenever the CDC put out that whole campaign about, preparing for a zombie apocalypse.
I saw that.
If you are prepared for that, you can be prepared for a hurricane, you can be prepared for flooding, you can be, whatever. So it's actually kind of brilliant on their part, taking popular culture icon, and kind of just selling your product, or not product, but helping
you dress it up.
Nation.
You dress it up to, distribute public information.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
Yeah, very true. And I think a lot of people, they were able to latch on to that because I remember seeing it a few years ago too.
Well, it's scary, but it's also kind of fun. I grew up playing Resident Evil and House of the Dead, and one of my favorite franchises is Dead Rising. And it's just it's a lot of fun to reinterpret the zombie and reinterpret the situations around them.
Since we talked about the zombies, and we talked about you have another series with the post-apocalyptic world in it, we've got a question from Jason Lavelle, and he was our guest last week on the show. And he asks, what is the most challenging part of creating a post-apocalyptic world?
In my opinion, it would definitely be plausibility and something that makes sense. A lot of times in post-apocalyptic worlds, they and I'm guilty of this as well, but it's like the society just completely falls apart immediately. If there's a rapid decline of society, be it from nuclear war or a plague that wipes out a whole bunch of people or whatever the case would be, I think there are just enough assholes in the world that there would be a resurgence of some type of, sometimes government, sometimes fiefdoms or whatever it may be, And so that's kind of how I wrote my book, or my series, The Path of Ashes. You had these certain groups of people that were trying to try to make things like the world used to be. Have a mayor and like a police force and all this stuff, trying to make things work. And then you had these assholes out, souping up old cars that were still able to work, and just raiding and attacking and stealing all the resources. That's what most people don't understand or don't think about. I really believe is the resources. If there was an apocalyptic type situation or zombies or whatever. I mean, New Orleans in 2005, whatever. Whenever you start running out of clean water and food, that's when things really start going downhill. And I actually was in New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina, like on the back end. Whenever we sent in the First Cavalry Division down there, Second Brigade, First Cav, the stuff you saw after only 8 days of no government, little government assistance, and just people kind of left on their own and no fresh water, no food. It was just insane. People killing each other for like the craziest things. People at the Superdome, there were lines of people, and you know what happened in the Superdome, obviously. The rapes and the murders inside there. But as we were trying to get people out, there were lines of people just standing outside the Superdome waiting to get on buses, and people would just take their pants down and take a crap right in line, literally right there, because they didn't want to lose their place in line or whatever, and they'd already digressed so quickly and so rapidly. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that humans will do whatever it takes to survive, and there's always going to be the predator out there that will take advantage of the situation. So a lot of times people don't. I go back and forth because I really believe in the strength of the human spirit, but I also I've met a lot of really, really bad people throughout my career. So I go back and forth, kind of what the plausible post-apocalyptic type scenario will be. And unfortunately, I do think it's the strong will wipe out the weak.
I agree 100%. That's, humanity at its worst. We are predators. We care, there are good people, but we care for ourselves and our survival before anything else. And that trumps whatever's going on around us, unfortunately. And I think when you have a disaster situation, absolutely brings out the worst and even the best of people, because their desire to survive is going to trump anything else around them. And I did the same thing when I worked on my Chronicles series. I took it 100 years past the apocalypse on the rebuild of society, but we still have, the jerks are in charge, and they're keeping everyone down. And that's really what I see would happen. The end of the world, it's going to be the wrong people rising to power.
Well, and realistically, the genteel human, has only been around for, 500,000 years maybe. We've got 10,000 years of evolution where it was literally the biggest, meanest, strongest person survived.
Yeah, I was going to say the muscle. Muscle controlled everything.
Yep.
So I just have a quick question for you. Now, you have a very long military career, and you also deal in post-apocalyptic subjects. Does it ever get to you? Like, do you ever actually get legitimately depressed by thinking about these things, or is writing your outlet to make yourself sort of cope with it?
For me, writing is very cathartic. Number one, because you can just kind of at the end of the day, get your feelings out on paper, or whatever. And let me caveat, number one, I've been extremely, extremely lucky in my military career. I've seen the aftermath of a lot of really bad stuff, but I've never been involved in the during. So I guess that's the easiest way to put it. So it still is, disturbing on some levels to think about things that you've seen and what you thought other people have gone through to get to that situation. So I do like the aspect of writing, getting my thoughts out on paper, and just trying to think about, situations that's going to happen that I've seen and kind of develop things as I go along.
Now, when do you find the time in your schedule to write? Are you a late night writer, an early morning writer? When do you make that time? And what is your general word goal if you have one?
So we just moved back to DC after being in Texas for 3 years, and actually where I wrote the bulk of my books were down in Texas. But primarily now I write in the evenings. So after my family goes to bed, they usually have my kids out of bedtime about 9 o'clock ish, My wife will go to sleep about 9:30, 9:45. So I'm blessed that I don't really need a whole lot of sleep. So these days I don't really have a word count per day, but I have like an hour count. So I try to get like an hour and a half, of writing. And it really depends on what subject I'm writing about, depending on how much research I do, because the research aspect of it eats up a whole lot of time.
Absolutely.
As I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of going right now. I'm writing 2 books at the same time right now, and one of them is based on the World War II, well actually post World War II Operation High Jump, which was whenever the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Army sent a huge task force down to Antarctica to work on cold weather training. But then there's also like the fact that the Nazis had several Antarctic expeditions, including Goring, the head of the Luftwaffe, led an expedition in 1939 down to Antarctica. And you don't have that high of a person doing things like that unless you've got designs on it. And then in July and August of 1945, after the war was over, July and August 1945, you had 2 U-boats show up in Argentina after the war totally, and they had no idea what all their ships logs were gone, and the identification cards of the soldiers were gone, and even interestingly enough, like the deck guns were even gone, which is just extremely weird. And so that could be to make them faster, to make them lighter, whatever. So that's kind of an interesting footnote in history, because these are facts that happened, and then we sent almost 7,000 dudes down to Antarctica for a year to do some training. What was that? And obviously it's still like uber top secret classified and stuff. You can find things out there, and like all the conspiracy theorists, are like, oh, it was UFOs. They were chasing UFOs or whatever. But there's definitely interesting facts about why the timing of all this stuff, and the fact that the Nazis were very interested in Antarctica. And then we did send a military force down there, after the war was over, after these U-boats showed up in Argentina. So again, that sort of stuff takes up a whole lot of research time. So you don't get nearly as much writing done if you're doing the research on that.
Now, when you do sit down to do the writing portion of it, we talked to H.D. Gordon a few episodes ago, and she said she sprints. So she sits down and she sets herself a goal. This 15 minutes, I want to hit 500 words or whatever her number would be for that 15-minute period. And that's kind of her goal. Get it done, get the words in the shortest space of time. Do you do that as well when you do finally sit down to write?
Yeah, I think my biggest idea about writing is to just word vomit onto the page. Get the words on there and then make it look pretty afterwards. That's the biggest hurdle. For me initially, that was the biggest hurdle to writing, because a lot of people are like, oh, I can write a book. They never actually sit down and do it. And I was one of those people for the longest time. I've always been a writer, but for the longest time I was like, oh, I can write a book. It's no problem. But then whenever you actually sit down and try to do it and make it coherent for 300 pages, that's when you start getting into some problems. And whenever I first started writing with my first book, I didn't know my process. So the book took 2.5 years to write, because I would go in, I would write, a paragraph, and I'd be like, well, I want to make this sentence perfect. And so I remember now back over here, I need to fix that, and I just didn't know. So now, I've kind of refined it to about 4 months a book, and I just word vomit onto the page.
Whoa.
And then you come in, for a month or 2 afterwards, and that's when you do all the self-editing and making things pretty, and then you give it to your editor, and your editor destroys it anyways. But you try getting the words on the paper is the biggest thing for me. So definitely sprinting. I call it word vomit, sprinting, whatever.
That's funny, because Katie actually says word vomit.
No, I say word spew.
Oh, word spew. My bad.
Word spew.
This is close.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. That's the way you have to do it. And whenever I do any kind of interviews or anything for blogs, there's always that question at the bottom: what advice would you give to other writers? And my advice is the exact same thing Brian just said: butt in chair and write. You have to get it on the page.
There's no substitute. No substitute for it. You're not going to get that perfect phrase every single time. And
taking that time in your first draft to go back and fix things, it stops you from the whole creative process.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know, and it really, really slowed me down. Turned out to be a pretty good book,
Which one is this, Nash?
That was Nash. Yeah,
Cool.
The first book that I got, a publishing contract for.
So I'm a little confused. Why it was just published in February?
Well, so Nash was originally self-published. So I released it in May of 2013 and was going along. I had a moderate following, as I was going along, and I kind of hit a plateau where I stopped getting new Facebook likes, stopped getting new interaction with people really, and then the sales really slowed down a whole lot. So then I started kind of seeking out. I was like, all right, as an indie author, I think right now for what I'm doing, I've kind of plateaued. So that's when I started seeking publishers. And actually, the only publisher that I ever submitted to, which is Permuted Press, they were actually looking for, or they were accepting previously self-published manuscripts at the time. And so I submitted to them, and I was working on a second book, which was Enduring Armageddon. I don't know, about a month and a half after I submitted, they said, "Hey, we want your entire manuscript. Can you send it to us?" Because I think it was like 3 or 5 chapters, something like that. It was the initial screening.
So this is sort of like a callback.
Yeah, so it's like a callback, yeah. And so I sent it to them, and within a couple of weeks, they said, "Hey, we want this, and we want anything else you've got." And so I literally had just published Enduring Armageddon, I think, in February, so that of 2014. So Nash and Enduring Armageddon were out there as self-published, and I signed a contract with Permuted. Permuted wanted to take Nash and make it into a series, so that's where we got Rend and Severed. So the 3 of those books make up the Washington Dead City series. And then they also published Enduring Armageddon. So pulled them off the market. They sat in limbo for about 2 years, as Permuted was going through some growing pains. And then it came out. Enduring Armageddon came out first, and then the series came out just February, March, and April of this year.
Yeah, because that's what I'm looking at right here, and it says February 9th, 2016 for Nash. So that's, you were saying is my first book, I was like, what?
Yeah, if you look at a lot of the reviews, I mean, they're from 2013, 2014.
Oh, so, that's cool that you're able to keep them.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. That's been something that I've been wondering is how do you actually go from being indie to being traditionally published? That's actually, that story is very important to me. So
well, and you really have to watch. I mean, not watch it, but a lot of publishing houses won't touch something that's been previously published.
Yes, that's what I found that so many times.
And so the new author or any author really they have to make a decision every single time. Do I want to take the route where I control 100% of my product, and I live or die by what I can do? Or do I want to try to submit it around and, to however many people you submit it to? And again, I was extremely, extremely lucky because I've never had a turn down. I've never had a rejection letter or anything, the one and done.
They suck.
Yeah. I mean, I talk to people that have hundreds,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I don't really have the basis of knowledge of the body of work that a lot of people put out there, and like querying to agents and all that stuff, because I've just never done it.
It's time consuming, and it's sort of depressing when you get you're lucky if you get a response.
Really? Yeah.
But the rejection letters, it's like getting stabbed by a small knife. Like, oh yeah, I'm not good enough, and then you just try and smile through your tears.
Yeah, because I mean that's something I've definitely learned. Thankfully, not through personal experience, but the publishing industry or publishing world is very small. There's lots and lots of people that publish books, and there's lots of publishers out there, but it's also very small, and word gets around quickly if you are not willing to play ball.
That's crazy. So then, wait a minute. So you also are a publisher.
Yeah. So
how does that work? How does that all function? So
it all started with my first book, Nash. I printed up, as a traditional self-published guy, a lot of people go to CreateSpace, Lulu, Ingram Spark is kind of the big 3 for print copies, and I went for the paperbacks, I went through CreateSpace, and again, don't know what you don't know. Well, actually, I guess we'll back up. Whenever I first started to look at publishing, I typed in "how do you publish a book" on Google, and of course, the very first thing that comes up are all those predator companies, and the boutique publishers and all that. So the ones where you pay like $8,000 and they'll publish your book for you. So
Whoa.
I don't know what I don't know, but I know that's not right. So I started doing a little bit more research and found
Yeah,
out
that's
about,
quite
like,
an entry fee.
Yeah, and actually I submitted to one because it didn't say anything about prices or whatever.
Not
And so
Publish
that-
America, was it?
No, I'm not going to name the company, but I do have it on my website, and I have the name of the company blurred out, and it was $8,000 to publish your book. And again, I don't know what I don't know, but I know that's not right.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
So started searching around. I found the Amazon KDP Kindle Direct Publishing Kindle
Platform.
Direct Press platform. Yeah, something.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And there's like the Nook Press, and there's Kobo, and there's Smashwords, and all those other things that are avenues for authors. So to the print side, I got a CreateSpace. I assigned ISBN from CreateSpace from Nash, and went up to Barnes and Noble down in Killeen, Texas, where Katie was from, in little K-town, and went to Barnes and Noble there. I was like, hey, look, I'm a local author, and they're like, awesome. We want you to come do book signings, all this stuff. Because there's like Killeen's. It's a very small, big town.
Yes.
And
It survives because of Fort Hood.
Yeah, it survives because of the military. That's the only reason it's there. There's no industry whatsoever there besides fast food. So they were all about having me there to do book signings and everything. And the manager's like, well, hey, let me type in the ISBN so we can order some books. So they type in the ISBN, and they're like, whoa, this is CreateSpace. And I'm like, yeah, so what? It's a paperback book. I'm a local author. And peel the onion back. CreateSpace is owned by Amazon. Amazon is Barnes and Noble's direct competitor. They wouldn't have my book in their store because they didn't want to support their direct competitor.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So that's literally how I started thinking about I want to do my own publishing press. Was that aspect to it, and then but on the flip side, that might have been just a local thing, a local business, because I definitely have a friend who's in Michigan, and the Barnes and Noble there lets him do signings on his CreateSpace signed books. So
things have changed in that area lately. CreateSpace's expanded distribution actually is becoming fully expanded, and Barnes and Noble can order from CreateSpace now, and they do on occasion.
Okay. Yeah, so my personal experience, I wasn't able to do it, and it just really, really turned me off. I took the experience with the boutique, or the vanity press, and kind of looking at publishing things for myself, and I was like, I know I'm going to be a self-publisher for a while, so I looked into the process of how to start my own micro press, and so that's where Muddy Boots Press was born. I use I get my own ISBN so that I can potentially, do whatever I need to do, if I want to sell it wherever or go to Barnes and Noble and all that stuff, so I won't run into that problem. As a micro press, like we do seek out, other authors. Obviously, the bulk of the stuff is mine because that's how it is. But we do have one other author that's published through us. It's kind of my little baby, and it's a micro press. And I tell people straight up, I'm not looking to add more than maybe one or two authors, a year at the most, because it's just me. I'm responsible for finding the editor. I'm responsible for finding the cover art and still writing at the same time. I always tell people who submit, and I get probably 2 submissions a month or so. I tell people who submit, I'm always like, number one, what do you expect from us? Do you expect to be a bestseller? It probably not going to happen because let's just be honest. But do you expect good editing and good cover art? Is that worth you losing 50% of your royalties? Because that's what we do. We do a straight 50% royalty split. And I've had people that have submitted books to me that have editing and cover art done, and I'm like, I tell them straight up, I'm like, look, I would love to take your money, but you've got what I can offer for you. You've done the hard work, because that's what a lot of indie writers don't understand is they need editing and they need good cover art
and interior formatting.
Yeah, I kind of view that as editing. I know it's not, but that's how I kind of package it,
right,
in my own mind. And a lot of indies just don't get that.
I don't think they realize what they're giving up.
Yeah, and if you've figured out in those 3 things, then you've cracked the code. You can get out there. And as a micro press, I don't have the big budgets, to do a lot of marketing. Even like the big 5 do not do very much marketing anymore for their authors. I mean, the James Patterson's, where he has TV spots, that's non-existent, for the average person. Very, very little marketing. You might get, with the big five, you might get flown to like conferences or something like that, to do book signings or speak or whatever. But a lot of it falls on the shoulders of the author themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Even these multi-million-dollar contracts,
Basically, my understanding of it is you have to draw in your own audience. You have to find the people and tell them about your work. The difference that I see between traditional and indie is indie I can do now. I can do it all myself. I can build my audience. Traditional, if I were to get accepted, my work wouldn't be seen for the next 2 years.
Exactly. Because for that was my personal experience. It was my book was off the market for 24 months.
Yeah,
from the time I signed the contract, it had already been out, already had a following, and so once it kind of went off the market, I had to tell people, hey, I'm still doing stuff. You just got to kind of wait. I mean, and that's really what it comes down to is the aspect of 100% control. Like I mentioned before, you live or die by your own works as an indie.
It's kind of scary,
you
but
live
it's
and die
true.
by your networking, your ability to network. That's what a lot of people don't understand too. I mean, you have to sell yourself a lot. I won't say a little bit, but a lot. But you really have to get to know people in the industry and get other people talking about your stuff. I mean, there's so many aspects. Like writing a book is hard, but getting people to care about your book is way harder.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling it.
Yeah. So getting people to talk about your work and to tell their friends about your stuff, that's the huge part.
And that's probably the hardest job of all. I mean, writing a book is definitely hard, but once it's done and you've got your baby in your hands, reaching out to people, reaching out to new readers. And not only that, but fighting against all of the other books that were published the same day your book was published to get a foothold in the market.
That's one of the things that you see so many new authors. Well, actually, indie authors at large, they give away books for free, and they give away hundreds and hundreds of books. And I very, very rarely give away books. I will do it now every once in a great while for like book 1 of a series. To like the sales for book 2 and book 3 will kind of carry on.
Like a starter set.
But yeah. I mean, but whenever I first started out, again, going back to all of the steep learning curve, whenever you're brand new, with Nash, I was like getting people telling me, hey, you got to give away free books because that'll get you the reviews. And once you have reviews on Amazon, that's how you get, that's how you get seen in the algorithm, which is true. The number of reviews and the number of ratings, or the higher the rating, and as well as the recency
and the sales rates,
as well as how recent a book has been, will get the book recommended in searches according to the algorithm. And there's also some other.
I know people get emails occasionally from Amazon. If you like this, you might like this, and sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So back to the first book there. I gave away, over like 4th of July weekend, that first year, if I remember right. I mean, now I'm talking, I don't want to like give like totally crazy numbers, but it was like 1,400 books over 4th of July weekend, something like that, which is for a brand new indie author is huge, and especially with zero promoting, just like kind of putting stuff out on Facebook and sending messages to Facebook pages. And then I think I saw a whopping maybe 5 reviews out of that.
Oh, that's really scary because I'm doing that right now.
Since it was my only book, there was no furthering buying other books as well because, hey, even if someone liked the book, but I don't know if they did or not, there was nothing else for them to go look at and see. For one and done authors, I say it's a horrible idea to give away your stuff for free.
I wish I would have talked to you before I had done that because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm on day 2 of a 3-day free book giveaway for my book. And it's been exciting to see the spikes in activity because it's really fun. On kdp.com, you can actually see how many people are taking it and stuff like that. And that's exciting. But yeah, making no money sucks.
and unfortunately, is it your only book?
Right now, yeah. I have a whole other book written. It's just not available.
It's one of those things, from experience, learning when you've only got the one. I mean, even if you give away 20 million, if nobody's going to follow up and buy book 2 or another book of yours, then you kind of just, I don't know, maybe you'll get some goodwill, and the gods will smile on you.
Fingers crossed, man, because, I'm working my ass off. As a matter of fact, I'm actually spending money to promote it on Facebook ads and other places to try and get it seen.
Don't waste your money on Facebook ads.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, I mean, it's only $10. It's $10.
Yeah. No, I mean, I continually try to do it. You know, I always think, oh, this is the perfect post that's going to do it. You know, and we'll try to promote or something, and you get like maybe 50 clicks. You know, so it's not worth it. Yeah.
Well, this is good because this transitions into our second question from Ask the Author. Our guest from last week, Amber Jager, asked about author newsletters, and she said, do readers actually like them? Are they worth the time and money for authors to create? And this works perfectly into social media marketing because, you know, along with newsletters, along with Facebook ads and things like that, these are all tools within our arsenal to attempt to get new readers.
Yeah, so I have a very small, so again, this is just my personal experience. I have about a 150 person mailing list. So it's very small in comparison to some people. But I do a MailChimp newsletter every time I have a new book come out or have a big sale. Because I have like a big 99-cent sale going on my latest book. It ends tomorrow. I do send out newsletters, but you look at the analytics behind it, and I have about a 3.6 to 4% open rate out of 150 people. Is the juice worth the squeeze? I don't know, you know, because I mean, I can't, after open, you can't tell if they've clicked on the link or anything like that through MailChimp, at least the free version of MailChimp. I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff you could do to see, you know, the click through and all that.
With like a more upgraded membership.
Yeah, I'm sure, but you know, this is just a hobby. I don't want to lose a lot of money doing a hobby.
We were talking to I think it was HD Gordon and ER Arroyo. They were talking about how you shouldn't pay for MailChimp until you have like it's over 2,000.
Yeah, at 2,000 subscribers, that's when MailChimp kicks into their paid for options, and they're actually more expensive than any other mail service out there. The suggestion was if you get close to that 2,000 mark, go to MailerLite as your option for email marketing.
Right.
You know, honestly, you know, the MailChimp is good for the free stuff, but looking at, you know, the numbers, that's what's important. If you've got 150 people on your subscriber list, but you've got a 50% open rate, that's great. If you've got 150 people on your list and you've got a 2 or 3% open rate, it's not really doing much for you. The same applies to a bigger list. If you've got, you know, let's say 1,500 people in your list, but you've got a 30% open rate, you're still getting a bunch of people who are looking at and hopefully clicking on your ads. And it still isn't costing you anything to do it. So
right, which is huge.
Well,
the free is the best.
Totally. Amber wasn't sure at all how to approach social media. And so my advice would be sign up for Instagram, sign up for Twitter. She already has her Facebook page. So link your Instagram to your Twitter and your Facebook. And then that way, like one of the things that I love about Instagram is you can cross-post across all of your platforms. So you will upload one photo and then, you know, plug it into your other networks, and then you can send it to all three at once. And
now,
Katie, you also have... There's a caveat there?
Yeah, the photo that you upload to Instagram, if you go to Twitter, though, it only sends the link. So you still have to go to Twitter if you want them to see your photo.
Right, so it's not listed in your media. And then the other thing that you told me was to include a link, which becomes live on Facebook.
Yeah, it won't be live on Instagram, but when it translates over to the Facebook post, your link will go live.
And then you also mentioned that you have your Twitter post to your author page on Facebook. Is that true?
Other way around. When I post to my author page on Facebook, it automatically sends that post to Twitter.
Okay, cool. So basically, I mean, my approach is just throw it out there and try. And hopefully people will eventually start noticing you.
Automation is good, although I have to say, you know, it's good to get stuff spread across the different platforms, but interaction is still key.
And that's where I get the biggest bang for my buck, you know, from Facebook. Instagram is great because people can like your post or whatever, but very few people actually, in my experience, interact on Instagram. But people interact like nobody's business on Facebook. You know, and the personal interactions that you can develop on Facebook is what really, again, in my mind, you know, the word of mouth is the best thing you can have as a small author, as a newer author, is any kind of author. E.L. James, you know, that stupid book wouldn't have had anything if it had word of mouth. the interaction and just being a genuinely good person. I mean, I guess it all depends on your personality, but actually trying to do right by your readers, is the biggest thing. Like just today, and I'm not going to call the guy out, and I totally didn't even mean to do this, but it was just interesting. A guy was asking me, on my Facebook page, if I had anything else in iBooks, because Bermuda Press publishes on the iBook platform, as well as Kobo and Barnes and Noble and all this stuff. And the only books of mine that are available on iBooks are those 4 from Bermuda Press. And the reasons why are, because you guys know the deal. You get a higher royalty rate if you sign up exclusively with Amazon. I've tried it in the past where I was published across all of them, and it just the bang wasn't there for me. So I always, when I self-publish, I'm exclusively through Amazon. And anyways, this guy was asking me, if I had anything else available, and I was like, no, it's all on Amazon. But you know what? I'll send you PDFs of the book, if you want. That just because you seem like a cool dude, whatever. And he sent me a message later. He's like, I really like, number one, your response kind of explaining the background behind it. And, I don't want you to give me free stuff. It's awesome that you are going to be a stand-up dude like that and offer that. So he actually downloaded the Kindle app for his phone and bought every single book, all 14 of them. Well, I guess whatever it is, 8
Wow.
that are on Kindle. He's like, yeah, I bought them all today, man. And so it's just, again, that interaction and just like trying to be like a good dude or just doing right by your readers.
Being real.
Yeah.
That's what readers want. They want to know you. They want to develop a relationship with you as their, favorite author or whatever.
Right.
And that just makes it even better, when you are actually a real tangible person that they can talk to, they can email, they can ask questions of.
Huge.
Yeah. I really like that story. That's cool. That's so neat because, for me, I am just starting out. So I love hearing about, basically anything. Right now, I feel like I'm a student. So
there's a lot to learn, though. Even seasoned authors who've been at it for years and years and years are still learning new things daily because there's always a new method of marketing. There's always a new social media platform. There's, always new formatting techniques.
Of course.
There's so much it's a constantly changing environment that, even if you're just starting out or if you've been at it for years, you could still learn something.
And what worked great for another person as well as for like maybe even your last book, like what skyrocketed you to the top 10, in your genre or whatever, could be like not work at all for your next book. It's always evolving, always changing.
Katie's told me that every book is a gamble.
Yeah, and like for Facebook, I know the current trend is either moving pictures or movies, or get huge interactions versus just pictures and certainly more than just text messages. So it's kind of right now, at least that's the hierarchy. Is videos are at the top, get the most interaction, and then or videos / moving pictures of some kind.
I think that's part of that. Part of that is because they all autoplay.
Maybe.
They don't give you a choice anymore.
Well, the live video feeds, though, a lot of authors are picking up on that because that's a great way to build interaction. And we'll be doing that as well when we get to Palm Springs Comic-Con next week. So we'll be doing some live feeds from Comic-Con as well as getting some video for the show.
And then we'll probably have like a recap as well.
Yeah, and that's the newest trend, like he said, the moving pictures, the live recordings, anything to snatch the person's attention as they're scrolling. That actually brings me to my final question of the evening. We had talked about how you give away books, and every author has a different method of doing it because, there's always the question of piracy. There's always the question of giving away too many books. Are, the books actually reaching the right people? Are they being shared around? So how do you give away a book when somebody wins it, if it's an ebook, for instance?
So typically for ebooks, I offer them, either a PDF, a Mobi, or an EPUB, just depending on what platform they're reading on. And we'll let them. They'll give me their email address. I'll give it to them. I don't get wrapped around the axles about piracy. It's one of those things you can't. If you get wrapped around the axles and you try to stop it and combat it and go to every little site and report it, you'll never get anything done because there's just going to be another one popping up. I have a real good Facebook friend, who was talking to me the other day about, her book came up on this piracy site, and she's like, "What do I do?" And my advice is like, just roll with it. Maybe someone will read it and enjoy it. Because, I mean, ultimately, that's what we do it for. We do it to have people enjoy it. So if someone wants to be a jerk and not pay for it and steal your stuff, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, what's it going to hurt? So, but I do give away like e-files, like I said. So either PDF, Mobi, or EPUB. And I usually just do it directly, like I said, through either email or Facebook Messenger, depending on how the contest or whatever was set up.
I'm the same way. I send out email copies. I'll ask people if they have a Kindle address that I can send to directly, because sometimes it's just easier to send it to their Kindle. Mm-hmm. But if they want an email, I send them whichever file format they want. And, as far as piracy goes, it does happen. It's going to happen. There's really not much you can do about it.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy.
For the PDF, do you format it a special way? Because one of the things that I was thinking of doing, if I was to give away the PDF, is just give the Kindle interior. So
I did do that for most of my stuff. The latest one, the immorality clause, I'm just going to hold it up. I'm just not trying to be like cool guy or whatever.
Don't show it off.
But so like for each chapter in the printed version, like you can see like there's different little like
graphics
and stuff like that, that are in there that I just thought were really cool. And like the Kindle version, those don't show up. So, well, I mean, they can, but it takes up a lot more memory, and it's just not worth losing the revenue, because the little inside baseball, the bigger the size of the file, the less money you get and all this sort of stuff. So it's just not necessarily worth it.
Anything over 2 megs, they start charging you a delivery fee. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when you have all those little PNG file or PNG pictures in there, it takes up so much freaking room. So whenever I have the PDF, I do have it actually saved differently. I have graphics for the chapter segmentations and everything. So the PDF is actually a lot nicer, I think, than the Kindle version, if we were to look at it that way.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah. What I was considering doing if I were to ever give away a PDF would be just send a zip folder of my cover art and then my Kindle interior.
You can put the picture, on page 1 of the interior in the PDF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then
just package
have
it like that.
One file. Yeah.
Cool. And you think that's sufficient?
I mean, if you're giving away something for free and someone's going to complain, then maybe you shouldn't give them anything for free anymore.
They don't deserve it.
No, they don't deserve it. Don't put those words in my mouth. But
most people too that are going after authors for freebies kind of expect that they're going to get what they get. I know a lot of times I'll say, do you need a PDF? Do you need an EPUB? Or do you need a Kindle? And they'll tell me which version it is. But if they don't give me any kind of specifics, I generally will send the PDF.
Okay, cool. Because I'm still learning how to do all of that. So I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and PDF can be read on anything. I mean,
yeah,
any like literally anything. So
yeah, a Kindle will read a PDF. So even if they have a Kindle and you sent them that, they can still read it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's very useful advice. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers our topics for today. In our description, we'll put in the link for our giveaway, which will have a chance at some print copies of Brian's books, which I think is really cool. Thank you so much for donating those.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. And thank you again for being a guest with us. This has been a great conversation. I like it.
Thanks for having me. I mean, I've had a great time. So
yeah, you've been wonderful. All right, well, we're going to check out for this week. Our next episode will be coming from Palm Springs when we're at Comic-Con, so look forward to seeing us there, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.